I don't feel like I have to prove that I belong. I live here. This is my home.
You're a black person in a white neighborhood, and you're acting like one. Why don't you act like a white person in a white neighborhood?
If all of us, all of humanity opens our hearts and not judge a book by its cover, we'll be able to see how much we can really be blessed by each other.
Confronting racism in your neighborhood or even at your front door. Those incidents aren't anything new for some families. For months, we've been part of tough conversations, seeing history happen from Washington, D.C. to right here in the Bay Area. Now, this is no doubt a marathon with more and more people joining that race every day. Now, some people have been training for decades, their entire life, while others are just taking their first steps. I want to say good evening to you and welcome to our 8th episode of Race in America, The Conversation. I'm Marcus Washington.
And I'm Jessica Aguirre. We have been doing this work of this communal self-exploration for months now, and it really is hard to believe, Marcus. It's a relief and really that this tumultuous year is almost over, right? Strife, discord, rancor, fear, and hate have punctuated 2020 and really left us battered and bruised in its wake. For some of those injuries have been physical, but for most of us, they've been emotional. And yet, with that despair comes new hope for a better 2021, one hopefully marked by change.
It's been a year like no other. A year in where, in addition to a global pandemic, our nation was forced to look itself in the mirror and confront the reality of racial inequity. Those horrific 8 minutes and 46 seconds on May 5th in Minneapolis taught us the name George Floyd. His death at the hands of police touched off the nation's deep look inward. No justice, no peace. People took to the streets, united by 3 words. Black Lives Matter! Confederate statues were toppled. The names on some UC Berkeley campus buildings changed. The Washington football team and now the Cleveland baseball team dropped mascots offensive to Native Americans. The call to defund police moved from protest signs to legislation in places like San Francisco and Berkeley. Give us a vote! We bid farewell to civil rights crusader John Lewis.
Good evening.
But we said hello to Kamala Harris, the nation's first black female vice president-elect. No justice! No peace! We learned new names for the wrong reasons.
Enough.
Jacob Blake
is enough.
Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, killed by Louisville, Kentucky police in a mistaken raid. None of the officers ever charged in her death.
We're cautiously optimistic.
In Oakland, the family of Oscar Grant renewed its fight for new criminal charges, 11 years after the killing at the hands of a BART officer.
Black Lives Matter!
A development in an unprecedented year that many believe is just the beginning.
Certainly just the beginning. Well, you know what? Education and mentorship, it's really a big part of change. On the campus of San Jose State, assistant coach Alonzo Carter's voice and leadership loud and clear. Now, they call him Coach Zoe, and he was a former dancer for MC Hammer. Many of you probably know that. He toured the world, even performing at the Grammys. Then he came back home to the Bay Area, became a father, a football coach, and got his college degree. I recently met with Coach Carter on the campus, and for the first time on television, he's opening up about the death of his younger brother, Charlie Griffin Jr.
I never wanted to talk about it on camera. This is the first time I've talked about it on camera. I said, because I don't know emotionally how I'm gonna deal with that.
Right.
I lost my little brother to, before the Black Lives Matter situation all came about, I dealt with that. My little brother was shot and killed by the police in downtown Oakland, unarmed, you know, so that's a whole nother part of me that I wear, and that was back in 2008.
Talk to me about how you felt then, what happened, and how is that different from what you're seeing now?
My brother was unarmed. He had been in and out of juvenile hall and been incarcerated pretty much from age 15 up until the day he died. He had just got off probation, and he was unarmed, but he was downtown Oakland, and he didn't want to go back to jail. He was passionate about, I'm not going back to jail, I'm not going back to jail. But there was an arrest that was supposed to happen. He was unarmed. and I wasn't there, but I couldn't understand, if you're going to arrest him, even if you're going to shoot him, why did you have to kill him? I know we need law, we need structure, I get it. But sometimes I think the fear of us
being black men,
a big black man, I'm scared. So I unload. I'm not tasering you. I'm going to shoot you.
Do you relive it when you see other names, Freddie Gray,
Yes.
Philando Castile,
Yes.
George Floyd?
The George Floyd, like I couldn't watch it. I cried. I cried when I seen the George Floyd. It just hurt me. And I was just like, man, this is not new. If you smart and you educate yourself, what happened to my brother and plenty other black men like myself, it's just being recorded now. And I'm not against the police, trust me when I tell you that. But let's be real. There are some that don't follow the law. There are some that take the law into their own hands, and they make it bad for the ones that are good. When I lost my little brother to that violence, and to see the Black Lives Matter movement grow the way it has, it's real. It's necessary. It's some anger, but like I say, you gotta learn to take that anger, turn it into passion, and take that passion and know how to speak on it to make people have empathy for your situation. Because I was hurt, I was angry, I was ready to do something. But what does that solve, you know? And I just want everybody to know that I feel you. I understand. I lived it. I went to the funeral. I buried my little brother. I was there. My mother was never the same when she lost her baby boy. Through that experience, I'm able to talk about it and try to help others that have been through that and try to teach them how to use that passion and to educate others that look like us and how to follow, to make that something positive.
You know, we're in a time right now where a lot of people are reflecting on what happened with George Floyd. You
Yes.
can certainly connect with that, what happened to your brother.
Yes.
And then you have so many students here they're angry.
Yes.
But they also want to motivate and inspire each other. So talk to me about the Zoom that you created.
The Zoom clinic was basically started because our head coach wanted us to partake in some professional development during COVID-19. Not only come back better as, we're telling the players to come back better as players, you guys need to come back better as coaches. So I decided to get part of a group of running back coaches, which was predominantly all African-American coaches. But I don't want to talk about football. I want to talk about the game within the game. I want to talk about the issues that we go through as black men and how do we become the next head coach or the next coordinator, the next CEO, leader of men, and have empathy about what's going on with each other.
When you look at mentorship, talk to me about the importance of you not only as a black man on this campus, but one that's willing to share your struggles and your heartaches.
Crack, I'm from the crack era. Crack cocaine was big, drugs was big. There was a lot of negative stuff. I'm from Oakland, born and raised, so there was a lot of stuff. I tell people, I'm not supposed to be sitting in this seat talking to you. I'm not supposed to be here. That wasn't in the cards. That wasn't in the projection. Jail, the grave, streets, hustling, whatever. I had every reason to quit. So to have a son at 17 in the 80s, you know, that wasn't common then. So it wasn't a cool thing to do, and there wasn't a lot of examples of other men to teach me how to handle it because they hadn't been through it themselves.
So your mistakes are becoming the teachable moments for a lot of your students.
Yes. And not only my mistakes, that same son, Alonzo Carter II, he's a college graduate now. He's married. But trust and believe there's going to be more that say you can't than you can. I wanted to be the one saying that you can. And I'm still like that to this day. I love touching lives.
He is so inspiring. You know, the thing about that interview, talking about his brother, we didn't know that story until we were in the interview.
That was so powerful and raw. And I have to say, we've been doing this for a while together now. I could see your reaction of how powerful that was for you and how that literally touched you. I could see it on your face.
Yeah, the very thing that we talk about, and we've been talking about in these conversations, happened to him. We've seen it happen to a lot of people, but this happened in 2008.
Right.
But he's using what happened to him to teach others. You know, like he said, I've been there. I buried my brother.
Yeah.
I went to the funeral. And he's teaching them, like, okay, this has happened to me, but this is how we change it. This is how we move forward. And I love the fact that he's teaching them. He's really, truly touched so many lives of many of those students on the campus. And we should mention that San Jose State football team, undefeated. They're actually playing in Mountain West Championship game this weekend, so best of luck to them. But you know what? Since we're talking about mentorship, I want to talk about this guy you see right here. This is Caleb Simmons right there. He calls Coach Carter a father figure to him. So coming up for you in 10 minutes, my conversation with him on the campus. He's a basketball player for the university, and he has a lot to say about what's happened to him on and off the court.
Okay, well, we'll see that. Also coming up next, when racism happens right at your front doorstep. I'm going to talk to Jeriel Jones, how an uncomfortable confrontation changed her family and the message they have for others.
Do you have something to share? We'd like to hear from you. This isn't just a black and white thing. David in Daly City wrote in on our website. He says he's from Myanmar, and while living here in the U.S., he says he's experienced racism he didn't expect. He says this, that Asians are now under attack. Asians don't make noise, just swallow the pain, as no one would care or listen. Well, we're listening on our NBC Bay Area social media pages. You can speak up online like David did. We'll be right back.
Remember this cringe-worthy confrontation involving dogs, kids, and allegations of racist behavior? It happened in Discovery Bay. A black family says the neighbor stood on their front porch and made comments about them acting black, her words, while living in a white neighborhood. Now, Jeriel Jones taped that ugly confrontation with her brother and that neighbor. She posted it on social media, and she joins us now. Thanks for being with us. So I have to start by asking you, was it just blowing your mind when you were taping this? I mean, what was running through your mind? And then when you went back inside the house, what was the conversation inside the house?
Yeah, I was completely shocked. Me and my family were all completely shocked. Never would you expect anything like that to happen at your front doorstep or to happen at all. So it was just completely shocking. I had to even check myself a couple times when I was recording, like, am I hearing what I'm hearing correctly? And when we came back into the house, it was just, again, like a whole bunch of shock, trying to figure out what the next step was, really just trying to process the whole thing. So that was just, yeah, kind of like our gist of how I was feeling afterwards and during.
Yeah, I can imagine that just must have been like, did this really just happen? So have you had issues with this neighbor before? Is there something else behind her behavior? Have you seen her since?
No, we had no problems with her. It would always just be waving, like when you're driving by or coming in, or like little conversations. Maybe when she like lost her dog before, like my family tried to come help her. But other than that, like we had no issues with her at all. And since then, no, we haven't really seen her. She did try to come over with one of our neighbors, and the neighbor tried to apologize on her behalf, but we haven't actually heard from her or really seen her other than like a little peers through the shades and things like that.
So there was a really big shift in dynamic here. This happened about a month ago, and initially you put it out on social media, and a lot of people came to your defense and your support saying, how could this happen? Has that kind of energy maintained?
I would say it has. A lot of people have definitely still been positive. Of course, there's always going to be the negatives. Or the negative people that are making their comments, but people have still been very supportive, reaching out and seeing what me and my family need, and we are overly appreciative of that.
Yeah, so was this kind of like a reality check? I know that you grew up being one of the few kids, black kids at a school, and that you always felt a little different, but was this a reality check of like, it's 2020, and this is really still happening?
I would say that the situation itself was not shocking that it's happening, especially in these times that we're living in. It was more shocking that it happened on my front doorstep. And like you said, I grew up in that area, went to school there. So I couldn't be shocked, but it really was like hitting in that things are getting extremely crazy, and you're starting to see the exact division in a bigger amount, outside of just seeing it on your phone or on your TVs, but it's actually coming to your front doorstep. And so, yeah, that was very big for me, and it was very heartbreaking as well, being that, like, I do live in these communities and live here, and these things are occurring.
And especially, I must imagine that something so brazen like that happening right at your doorstep. Your home is supposed to be the place where you feel the safest. That really must have shaken you.
Of course, because you don't feel safe anywhere, you know, leaving your house, in your house, going to get the mail. Nothing feels safe nor okay, because it always just feels like you have that target on your back just for the color of your skin, or what you look like.
So what are your, we've had such a rough year, you know, with so much, you know, racial inequity being brought to the forefront, and this then happening at your doorstep as well. As we leave this year, are there any positives or anything moving forward for 2021 that you can take away from this and say, okay, this horrible thing happened across America and right at my doorstep, but we've learned something. I'm hoping people around me have learned something.
Yes. And I think that especially even when it came to like the protest, or even how this kind of like blew up, it showed that no matter if you live in a predominantly white neighborhood, a predominantly black neighborhood, it doesn't matter, that racism will not be tolerated and that it is not okay. So I definitely think that message was definitely taken across when it came to how everything was handled in this situation. And that, you know, you can't live like that. Like, it's better to live in peace and accepting each other than to be hating each other and coming over with just pure hate intentions.
Yeah. All right. My best to you and your family in the new year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know it can happen, but you never think it's going to happen to you.
You just don't think it's going to happen on your doorstep either.
No. All right. Well, up next for you, more than an athlete. I chat with Caleb Simmons about racism in sports and what he says about the threats he's gotten because of his activism. Well, you know, over the past few months, a lot of people have been fighting for change, and they have been young people, including student athletes. One of those voices, Caleb Simmons. He's a junior at San Jose State University and a basketball player. Now, we met on campus to talk about his activism and those who have influenced him. Simmons says football assistant coach Alonzo Carter is one of several people who have helped guide him on his journey.
Coach Carter has been that father figure that I didn't have here. My father's still alive, mind you, but here, he has literally been an extension of my father.
What would you like to say to Coach Carter about his influence, his support, that maybe he doesn't know?
Being a black man, leaning on another black man that's older, that's been through more in life, has been everything for me, because not only can he give me guidance in my work, in my lowest moments, but he can encourage me to be more than what I'm already doing.
Oh man, Caleb is wonderful. I mean, when we first talked, I seen the dude with a lot of passion, you know, with a lot of knowledge, but a lot of hardship in his life. But in that process, you're able to educate yourself. And by educating yourself, education is powerful. How do you make people understand that it's okay to be passionate, but make sure that they understand, they have some empathy for you. Make sure that they want to hear what you have to say. And that's what I felt with Caleb.
So racism has affected me in sports, literally here in college. You know, I remember traveling, this is my freshman year, going to like road games like Boise State, Utah State. In the crowd, you can lowball hear some stuff that's crazy. It just brings me back to, you know, I'm just black. At the end of the day, I'm a black man in America.
When George Floyd died, that sparked a fire for so many people to do more, to reveal injustice and do something about it. Talk to me about how that affected you as a college student.
After seeing that, and the movement was to vocalize and to talk about those troubling times, it really sparked me to do a lot and to share my stories, you know, being vulnerable with people.
Caleb is no longer being silent. He says a run-in with police near campus prompted him to speak up.
UPD was parked halfway between the corner of San Carlos and San Salvador, and mind you, there's no cars coming. It's late at night, and I didn't even think to look at whether or not the light was green or red because nobody was coming. There were no cars. I crossed the street. I'm getting ready to walk into the Jack in the Box, and you know, I'm just like bombarded with these questions by the officer, and I'm just so baffled that he's even questioning me that I crossed the street when no cars were coming. You know, just for me, that's when I knew that I couldn't just hold it in anymore. Like 2020 has brought it out. Seeing so many of my friends die, unfortunately, to police brutality. Like, you know, I have some friends that play basketball with me that should be here right now that aren't because of police brutality and just the simple fact that they were black in America at the wrong time.
People say they should just shut up and play the game. When you hear people saying that, how does that make you feel as an athlete who has something to say?
It's more fuel to the fire, it's more ammo to continue what I'm doing. I feel like right now that I'm in a position that can literally help a lot of people. And for me to be silent is an injustice to people that I don't know. I'm not just an athlete. I'm trying to establish that new culture for people doing more and being more.
Simmons serves on the NCAA Student Athletic Advisory Committees for San Jose State University and the Mountain West Conference. He's also the foundation director for Athletes for Changes.
It's a group of student athletes that some of us go here and some of them go to UC Santa Barbara down south. Really over the summer after George Floyd, there were just a lot of people that were making some really big statements, and we just wanted to be able to impact some kind of positive change. So much support from different universities even, and athletes, professional athletes. It's been really amazing.
You know, on a college campus, the athletes are the stars of the campus. They are the celebrities of the campus. And the fact that you are in that position, do you ever fear for your life? Or do you ever feel that you are faced with injustice?
Definitely, I do look over my shoulder sometimes when I'm out by myself, walking at night, or if I'm even coming back from a parking garage late at night, because I have received those death threats from even people who go here, believe it or not. In the area, like, you know, I can't hide. You know, I'm not hiding. I'm willing to, you know, put my all into this, and I understand everything that comes with it.
Is it what you saw Tommie Smith, John Carlos, Muhammad Ali, Colin Kaepernick go through, and the fact that they still push forward?
Of course.
Is that what keeps pushing you?
Of course. Yeah, like that's exactly it, because like this is something I'm sure if you ask them, are they willing to die behind this? Of course. It's the same for me.
Tommie Smith and John Carlos, former San Jose State students, raised their fist on the medal stand at the 1968 Olympics. This was in protest against racial injustice. The image is iconic and is honored by these statues on the San Jose State campus.
You know, they enabled everything that we see today. They established the norm back when no one else was doing it. You know, they really have created the realm of what black sports figures are today. We're just barely I feel like we just barely crossed the starting point of a race. Now, you know, everything that we see in 2021 is going to really reflect on what we've been able to do in 2020.
Yeah, truly stepping in the footsteps of activists from San Jose State University.
Well, iconic, that statue, and so relevant still today,
yeah.
Right? Like literally.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he is so impressive. And I just want to say that because what he's been able to do is really galvanize the community, the students on campus, to make change, to ask for change, to demand for change. And it's really impressive to see kind of what he's been able to do with, you know, online, calling other athletes to the table to say, hey, we've got to do something. And they're doing it.
You have this platform. Let's use it.
Like he said, yeah.
Okay, we've been getting feedback on our social media platforms, so we asked Chris Kimura to keep an eye out for us. Chris, what you have?
Hey, Jess and Marcus. First, we have a word of gratitude from Nancy in San Jose. She wrote in on our website and said, thanks for taking on this important subject. Now let's switch to Facebook. And Cheryl, who replied there, she said she saw a racist issue at her apartment this past week. It was so uncalled for against a family. So a question here, Jess and Marcus. What do you think about strangers and bystanders speaking up when they witness a racist act?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's important that we do. I mean, one, I want to say make sure you're safe and all that, you know, but I think it's important that people see we're not standing for this. And I remember one time I was talking to a coworker and she said, I saw this incident happen and I got nervous and I didn't know what to do.
Right.
But I thought, you know, how powerful would it have been if you just said, no, we're not doing that here.
Don't you remember we had a guest on early on in the show, Kelly Yang? She was a Asian woman, a children's book writer.
Yeah.
And she said that someone approached her at a park and she was first rattled. But she said the most powerful line that I remember from that show is she said, your voice is your armor.
Yes. You have to speak up.
And if we do that, and sometimes it is shocking when someone does it to you and you can be paralyzed, but if you're the person witnessing it, then your voice is your armor for yourself and for that person also.
Because sometimes people they're scared to say something, alone, but trust and believe. If you step up, somebody else will follow. Because I think typically more people are thinking the same thing that you're thinking at that time, but people are just scared, don't know what to do. Just that one voice will ignite the fire of so many people.
And I also think that one person speaking up changes the dynamic. Well, you might have silence with a lot of people. One person changes it. And what's MLK's famous quote where he says, in the end, it's not you won't remember, the words of your enemies, but you'll remember the silence of your friends.
Absolutely. Anything worth fighting for, I think, is worth the fight. It's not going to be easy, but it's worth the fight. So we have to remember that it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be something that's going to make you feel, strong in the beginning. But trust me, when you finish, you're going to be as tall as any mountain in this world.
Well, and it's part of, we keep talking that we're having this conversation. Well, isn't part of the conversation speaking up? Yeah. Isn't part of that conversation is coming to the aid or to stand by someone when they're the victims of racism? It always isn't just ourselves, right? It's when you witness it. I mean, and that's what we're seeing across America. That's what we saw. For as difficult as this year has been, what we saw across America is people finally standing up and saying, this is not going to be tolerated. I'm going to speak up too. No, we're each other's keeper. Yeah, we are. We are each other's keeper. We have to stand up for each other. We have to support each other, and we can't allow the punishment or disgrace from one person to stand. We won't do that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Thank you for being with us.